Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about top 10 running backs in the 2025 NFL Draft Class based on data. That's right, we're here. We're here, guys. And, the 2024 college football season hasn't started yet, but I think it's a good primer to kind of get an idea of, who are the 10 backs that have the best potential to be really good NFL players. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at production, age, and other statistical factors to determine who the best running backs might be in the 2025 NFL draft class. So stay tuned until the end of the video where I reveal the number one running back in this particular draft class. But with all this stuff out of the way, let's get to some honorable mentions. So I again, uh, there were some running backs that I didn't feel comfortable leaving off the list. I'm not going to do a full breakdown on them. If you want me to do a full breakdown on Amarion Hampton or Damian Martinez from Miami, comment below. Comment below if you want me to do a full breakdown on them. But I just did a general data score for them. So Hampton had an 82.14 overall data score, and Damian Martinez had an 80.63 out of 100 data score. In many ways, these guys would be in the top 12 running backs based on data in this particular draft class. But let me know below if you want me to do like an individual video on them. But with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to the legit list. Starting with number 10, we have Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Now, he doesn't have the best data, but he does have good efficiency scores. So when you take a look at his overall data here, based on market share data, he has 51 percentile in terms of total offensive market share. It's okay. 59 percentile in terms of receiving market share, and then 57 percentile in terms of touchdown market share. These numbers are okay, not the best. Again, when you look at the starter averages, the Pro Bowl averages, all pro averages at the position, none of these numbers really hit where you want them to hit. So from that perspective, Henderson is a little concerning. But when you go to efficiency scores, this is the area that he really did well in. So his touchdowns per touch, his yards per reception, of course, yards per touch, all those things were really good. So from an efficiency standpoint, good. From a general production standpoint, not so hot. And when you get to adjusted production, so adjusted production takes a look at his production for his age, his level of competition, and the team that he was on, he hits at least near the starter averages at the position. So his age is decent, his MSA rating is decent, and his pass score is decent for him. And because of that, he kind of hits in that sort of starter range, in terms of running backs. His overall market share is not the best. Again, that's why he's number 10 on this list, but this could improve this year with a Chip Kelly offense. But we'll kind of see what happens here. But that's the general stuff with him. And in terms of college football statistical data, so this is a new metric I'm kind of formulating. I'm still working on for running backs, but this takes a look at different things in terms of their data. So instead of just looking at the overall market share of them, what was their individual production data compared to past players? And I compared it to 95 to 99 percentile NFL running backs, 90 to 94 percentile NFL running backs. And when you look at Henderson, I think the biggest areas that he did really well in it was his TD percentage, his 20 plus yard run percentage, which is the percentage of runs that he had that were 20 plus yards. But everything else was slightly above, below average, especially his attempts and his yardage. So those are things I definitely need to improve. On top of that, when you look at his first down conversions by down and distance, Henderson, I believe, really needs to improve in terms of second down conversion rate there. He was 46 percentile in terms of that particular metric, but that is definitely something that needs to improve. His first down and third down conversion rates are decent numbers to make. But again, the second down is the one area I think he really needs to improve upon in terms of his conversions by down and distance. Next up, we get to number 9 on this list, which is Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, from Arkansas. So he played at Arkansas and then he transferred to South Carolina. And we're going to kind of see what his data says about him here. So based on his data, he had decent total offensive market share, 79 percentile. His receiving market share was 77, and his touchdown market share was 62. So not the most touchdown heavy type of player, which is not always what you want to see, but definitely good in terms of his other, market share data stuff. Now, when you get to his efficiency, this is the one area that's a little bit concerning. He has a really good yards per touch statistic, and yards per reception is decent, but his touchdowns per touch is below average. And that's, again, not a number that you want to see. So the biggest weakness for him in many ways would be touchdowns. That's a big sort of issue to kind of look at, and hopefully he rectifies this season on the South Carolina Gamecocks. And then when you look at his adjusted production, similar to Henderson, age is he's a little bit older, but he does have a good MSA rating, a good pass rating, and he kind of is in that starter average area. So again, not the most crazy adjusted production score, but definitely decent. When you get to his statistical data, though, he was actually pretty fantastic in terms of every single metric. Overall touchdowns again is below average, which is the biggest concern with him, especially his TD percentage. I mean, he had a 35 overall TD percentage when you look at college football situational stats on all down. So that is definitely a big concern. But the rest of his data is solid. Solid numbers across the board for him when you compare it to past NFL running backs based on this data. And when you look at first down conversions, I would also say second down is the biggest down he really needs to improve upon. A lot like Henderson. So 44 percentile in terms of second down conversion. That's a number that really needs to improve. But he had a really banging third down conversion rate. Look at that, 98 percentile in terms of his ability to convert on third down in terms of running with the football and getting a first down. So great number there. And then a great number on first down. But second down is definitely an area where I think he needs to improve the most going forward in terms of his data. Then, of course, we get to number 8 on this list, which is Jonah Coleman from Washington, another player that has a touchdown issue. So his total offensive market share is average. His receiving market share is decent. 68 percentile is a decent number. Could potentially make him a receiving back, but the touchdown numbers not where you want him to be. Again, below average in terms of his touchdown percentage. When you look at his efficiency scores, another area very similar to Raheem Sanders, where his touchdowns per touch is not where it needs to be. His yards per reception is where it needs to be, and his average yards per touch is where it needs to be. But touchdowns is a big thing that I think Coleman really needs to improve upon going forward, and hopefully he does that at Washington. Then when you get to his adjusted production, a better age, MSA rating is decent, pass rating is decent, and again a little bit higher than the starter averages of the position. So he's somebody I think is really interesting, maybe not talked about enough, because the change of scenery might be a plus for him. So going to Washington, the Washington Huskies might be a big move for him to maybe establish himself and maybe bump up in the rankings in many ways. So, but he's definitely a guy I really think a lot more people need to watch his film on because he has some interesting data here and there. On top of that, his overall college football statistical data, uh, below average in certain areas. Touchdowns, biggest thing, not the thing that you want to see. His rushing attempts, his yardage, not where it needs to be. First downs, total 10 plus plays, not where it needs to be. But his percentage of plays that went 20 plus yards was fantastic, 94 percentile. So when he was given the football, he was taking it really far, which is a solid number for him to hit. So I would like to see where he goes in the future with that because these are really good numbers for him based on this. And when you look at his conversion rate, all those areas are fantastic. His first down conversion rate. So even though his usage wasn't that high, his first down conversion rate was 90 percentile in terms of getting first downs on first down situations. Second down situations was 63, and then third down situations he was 96 percentile. So high numbers, really great numbers for him in terms of his ability to convert first downs on first, second, and third down. So this is the really secret sauce to him. His overall market share production is not where you want it to be, but he has the data to suggest that if you give him the football more often, I think he could become a really, really great, running back this year. So definitely keep track on him. If he doesn't break out, he doesn't break out. But these are solid numbers for him, and again, that's why he is where he's at on this list in the top 10. Then, of course, we get to number 7 on this list, which is Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State. Overall data right here. And then when you get to his market share data, really good total offensive market share. Receiving market share, not really where it needs to be. Touchdown market share is great. So other than the players, he's one of those guys that his touchdown numbers are great, but his receiving market share, receiving production is not where it really needs to be. When you get to efficiency scores, great touchdowns per touch, great yards per reception, and good yards per touch. Those are also really good numbers for him in terms of efficiency. I think the yards per reception definitely needs to improve along with his receiving production in general, but these are good numbers for him to hit. Then when you get to adjusted production, his age score is decent, his MSA rating is decent, his pass score is decent as well. And when you get to situational statistics, he pretty much hits all the areas that you really want him to hit in terms of his data, with the exception of 10 plus yard plays, percent and based on a percentage standpoint, and his average yardage. But for the most part, these are solid stats for him to hit. When you get to conversion rates, I think he needs to improve on first down. So his first down conversion rate is 45% is in the 45 percentile. Most 95 to 99 percentile running backs had at least a 67 percentile area in terms of first down conversion rate. So that's one area that really needs to improve. His second down conversion rate is also an area that he can improve upon, and his third down rate as well, also something that can improve a little bit. But these are the biggest things I think he needs to focus on to get a little bit better at, and that might improve this year in a Chip Kelly offense because, of course, he is at Ohio State this year versus Ole Miss. So we will miss him at Ole Miss, but Ohio State is should like this guy a lot. He does bring a lot to the table. Then, of course, we get to number 6 on this list, which is Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. His overall data, and from a market share standpoint, really great receiving data. Not the best in terms of his total offensive market share or touchdown market share. So a guy who's kind of the opposite of Judkins in many ways. When you look at efficiency for him, his yards per touch was great. His TD percentage was above average, and his yards per reception also was above average. So again, he's more of a receiving back based on his production, but definitely good numbers across the board. When you get to adjusted production, he's a little bit closer to the starter averages and the All-Pro, Pro Bowl averages, but he can definitely improve that this year, especially with having less competition in the fold in terms of guys going on to the NFL level. And then when you get to his college football situational data, he does have a lot of things he really needs to improve upon in the macro space. So again, his rushing attempts is not really it's not really where it needs to be. His yardage is not really where it needs to be. His total touchdowns, his total first downs, total 10 plus yard plays, even first down per conversion rate in general is not that great. 10 plus yard runs not really where it needs to be, and also TD percentage not really where it needs to be. So there's a lot of things from a situational standpoint. I think Edwards definitely needs to improve upon as a rusher, and that might be why his receiving production is much more impressive than his actual rushing production because of these numbers right here. Now, when you get to his conversion rates, he actually is not terrible. His first down conversion rate is 51 percentile, which definitely can improve, but his second down conversion rate is the biggest thing that really hurts his overall data. He had a 12 percentile second down conversion rate, which is not where you want that to be. But his third down conversion rate was 67 percentile. So there's hope that this year he could improve all these numbers, and I think it really would help him out a lot and kind of get him a little bit up there in terms of as a rusher. So I think he needs to, his receiving production is good, but I think he needs to improve his rushing ability. And if he does that this year, I think you could be hearing his name a lot more often in draft circles this year. Then, of course, we get to number 5 in this list, which is DJ Giddens from Kansas State. Overall production for him is impressive. Really good receiving market share, touchdown market share, not really where it needs to be, below average, but not incredibly below average, not significantly below average. Good total offensive market share. All these numbers could definitely improve. And then when you get to his efficiency scores, his touchdowns per touch is the biggest thing that really needs to improve, but his yards per touch and yards per reception are all numbers that are really good. So as a receiving back, he really pops a lot based on his data here. And when you get to adjusted production, good age score, good MSA rating, good pass rating, good numbers all around the board for him. When you get to his situational statistics, really solid numbers here, with the exception of touchdowns here. 20 plus yard plays is another big kind of hiccup for him. 10 plus yard plays are good though. TD percentage is not really where it needs to be. But the biggest thing, honestly, is the conversion rate. Really solid across the board conversion rate. So whether it's first down, second down, third down, conversion ability, right where you need it to be in terms of that. So Great down and distance data for him, and I think he definitely needs to improve as a rusher. But in terms of his receiving production and everything else like that, I think he is an interesting player. Now he is a little bit thinner, so if you watch him on film, you're going to see a guy who kind of looks like Gumby a little bit. But if you actually take the time to really watch his film and dissect it, I think there's a lot of interesting things about him. And I think if he gets a little bit bigger, which is possible, and improves his rushing ability, I think he could end up being higher on this list if he just improves these numbers here and there as a rusher. Then, of course, we get to number 4 on this list, which is Jarquez Hunter from Auburn. Based on his overall data, really solid numbers here. Again, more of a receiving back, but really balanced in terms of his total offensive market share and his touchdown market share. So again, really impressive numbers here. His efficiency scores also are pretty decent. TD, touchdowns per touch, yards per reception, and yards per touch were all pretty decent for him. When you get to his adjusted production, his age scores, MSA rating, his pass rating, all those numbers are really solid. Situational statistic wise, and this is based on his most recent data, could use some improvement. A lot of his data really sticks out more so in terms of his 1 year data. So he's one of those guys that honestly might need to rank a little bit lower, but there was a lot of really good receiving data for him that I think is really impressive for him that I think you could see a lot of improvement on. Then when you get to his situational statistics in terms of down and distance, his first down conversion rate is decent. Second down is a big area I think he really needs to improve upon, and then third down was 91 percentile. So he was money on third down conversion rates there. So again, situational wise, definitely can improve there. And I think a lot of the things that really hold him back is his yardage in many ways. I think touches, etc., need to improve. But this could be the year that it happens. He was one of those guys that from last year I had him sort of breakout candidate. Last year it didn't really come to fruition, but this year things could be better, and you could see a much improved Hunter in many ways. Then, of course, we get to number 3 on this list, which is Devin Neal from Kansas. Based on his data, he is solid total offensive market share, receiving market share, and touchdown market share. Again, all these numbers are really solid for him. When you get to his efficiency scores, yards per reception is the biggest Achilles heel. So really good touchdowns per touch, really good yards per touch, but not so much in terms of his yards per reception. That's a big thing I think he really needs to improve upon. When you get to his adjusted production, great age score, great MSA rating, and great pass rating, especially. These are numbers that, again, are more indicative of like a Pro Bowl average player. So, really good numbers overall for him based on that. When you get to his situational statistics, solid numbers across the board. His total first downs could improve. His first down conversion rate overall definitely needs to improve. But everything else in terms of overall statistics and statistical information is solid. When you get to his first down conversion rate, I think the biggest area that really needs to improve for him is second down, because first down is decent, second down 29 percentile, and then third down is 66.45 percentile based on that. So his overall data from this perspective definitely needs to improve on second downs, but I think if he does that, it'll help all his other numbers. And the best thing, the coolest thing about Devin Neal is that he has another year to improve these numbers. So even though his numbers aren't the best, there's another season coming up where these numbers can improve a lot for him. So I'm excited to kind of see where he goes. Again, solid data across the board, but definitely should improve upon his conversion rate, which I think is the biggest weakness in his data overall. Then, of course, we get to number 2 on this list, which is Ashton from Boise State. When you take a look at his production, really solid production across the board, 80 percentile total offensive market share, 97 percentile in terms of receiving market share, and 86 percentile in terms of touchdown market share. Great numbers to have as a running back, really solid overall. When he gets his efficiency scores, great touchdowns per touch, great yards per reception, great yards per touch. All those things are just fantastic for him, and I really am a big fan of his game in many ways because of his efficiency. Then when you get to adjusted production, everything you need to really hit. So even though he played at Boise State, which is a little bit of a concern, the Mountain West running back, but when you look at his age and you look at how productive he was for his age, even though it was against Boise, even though it was at Boise State against Mountain West Conference for the most part, great numbers all around for him. And it gets even better when you get to his situational statistics. So again, above average in every single metric here in terms of his all downs situational statistics. Exactly where you want to be. And then when you get to his first down conversion rate, I think the only thing that really needs to improve is his first down area. 48 percentile is not the best in terms of a first down on first situation perspective. And third down definitely can improve as well. But second down conversion rate, 93 percentile. So I think if he improves in terms of first down situations and third down situations, I think he could be even better than what he is right now. And he's another player that I'm really excited has another season to really improve these numbers overall for him, and I'm really excited about him. Then, of course, we get to number one on this list, which isn't surprising. I mean, it might be surprising, but there is something about him that is a little off, and we'll get to that towards the end. But Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State, great numbers across the board. Really good total offensive market share, receiving market share, and touchdown market share for him. When you look at efficiency scores, really good efficiency overall. Yards per reception could use some improvement, but solid numbers nevertheless. And adjusted production wise, hits all the numbers you're looking for to have all pro, Pro Bowl potential in many ways. The biggest issue with him, when you look at him from a situational statistic perspective, is first down conversion rate. And you might be surprised to see this, but his first down conversion rate numbers are a little bit concerning. So this is what I mean by this. When you get to his first down conversion rate by down and distance, his first down, first downs on first down in many ways, is 56 percentile, which is not a bad number to have. That's decent. But his second down conversion rate, his ability to get first downs on second down is 27 percentile. And then his ability to get first downs on third down is 17 percentile. These are not the numbers that you want to hit. They really aren't. And that's a big question mark because it kind of puts him in an area where you have concerns about him in terms of that. So we might have to get, some more film on him to kind of see, but this does raise some alarms in terms of his efficiency as a running back. So other than how well he does in the aggregate, in terms of down and distance, in terms of situational football, he is a little lacking. And hopefully this year he improves all these numbers. But that is one thing of concern that I hope improves this year. Now, you might look at all this data and go, well, Jim, why is he number one on this list if his conversion rate is so bad? And again, when you look at the other data points that I showed you, that's there. But another thing to really point out is Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley had a really good first down on first down data point with crappy second down conversion rate and awful third down conversion rate. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say that Saquon Barkley is overrated. Some people think that again he tries too hard to make a big play instead of taking what's there. And maybe that's a similar situation to Ollie Gordon. I don't know. I mean that's something that I think a lot of film scouts might want to look into. But in terms of his data, there are successful running backs with this pattern, which I'm showing you one right here, but it does raise some questions that I think film can kind of answer in terms of what he might be like as an NFL player. So he might be productive in the NFL, but not as productive as we all would hope because of this potential flaw. But he does have another season to improve this, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. But that definitely is a really interesting data point that shows up that there is some concerns. There are some concerns here. Moving on to the 2025 NFL running back outlook. So the 2025 NFL running back outlook is looking really promising, guys. I'm really excited. There's a variety of backs with decent NFL size, along with they have the production to match as well. And this list doesn't even include backs who have yet to break out in 2025. So there was a lot of backs that I didn't even mention on this list that could have better years this season and then bump into the top 10 or even top 5. There is that potential there, but for the most part, this is the backs that I think a lot of you guys really should be focusing in on this year based on data. These are the backs that have the best statistical chance from a probability standpoint of having a really big impact at the NFL level. And I think you guys definitely should be kind of circling back to these names as the season goes on. Now, again, this is not a final ranking for the 2025 NFL running backs at all. Again, this video is being made in June, but as a preview, as a primer, as a thing that kind of gets you in early, definitely pay attention to these names and everything else like that. And so, with all that stuff out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Jim Coburn. You can check out my other work at patreon.com/jcoburn. Also, check out my other work on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, at Geometrics. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.